over 600 crores in revenues, boosting the economy at every end. I think a report out just a couple of days ago, EY and Book My Show, talking about 12,000 crore rupees. The size of revenues generated just in 2024 with live events and concerts. And it's a strange paradox. At a time that we're talking about more and more people consuming content and entertainment on their devices or at home, you still have enough people wanting to go out there, at least in the Indian context. So let me start with that, and of course, introducing our fantastic guests. You have voices coming in from Book My Show today. Of course, Ashish Hemrajani here. You have Vivian Lewitt, a Global Head of Artists YouTube, and you have Virav Sarkari of Wizcraft. So great panel here to talk about this with, at the forefront of live event economics. We're going to have to shout over the live event next door, but I think we'll manage to do that. So Ashish, let me start with you. Is the kind of response, and of course you've been seeing this for a long time, doing this for a long time, the kind of response we've seen in 2024 to live events and Coldplay on the top of that pyramid, is that something that you were prepared for, or were you also taken aback?
Thank you for having me. Firstly, a correction. The 641 or 650 crores number was the economic impact that the city of Ahmedabad saw. That wasn't really the revenue. The revenue, which was direct, was about 320 or 350 crores, and the GST impact was about 72 crores. So there's a little bit of a correction there. Look, let me try and contextualize this. And I may be politically slightly insensitive here, but I mean, it's just, look at the intent and not the words. You know, India is 4 Indias, and I keep saying this. One India is the London of India, which is about 5 to 6 million Indians, which have the highest purchasing power parity and are at the highest end of the percentile globally. You've got about 50 to 55 million Indians, which I call the United Kingdom of India. Between this cohort, which is English speaking, private healthcare, private education, travels, studied abroad, they control about 60 to 65% of the GDP of the country and about 75% of the consumption of the country, maybe even 80%. There is about 450 million Indians, which I call the Brazil of India, which is the emerging middle class, where the annual, the monthly household income was about $100 till about 15 years ago. That has grown 4.5x to about $450. And if you were to contextualize that, the purchasing power parity, you just multiply that by 4 in a US context. So that's about $2,000 a month. And then there's the Africa of India, which is underserved parts of society, which you can only do CSR and plow back and give back to society. So this cohort existed in India all along. It's just that it was this untapped potential of 65% of the youth, which is below the age of 35. It's the youngest demographic which sits in the country, which is exposed to platforms like YouTube. The YouTube of India is YouTube, unlike China. The Facebook of India is Facebook. The Instagram of India is Instagram. And they're exposed to all of this. So when you mention that, is it at the cost of each other? Actually, they work in tandem. We do a lot of work with YouTube, and there's data, there's analytics. Kids watch concerts online, and they have the same aspirations. And then they want these shared experiences. So I think it's something that goes hand in hand. And it wasn't a surprise when we were working on the cohorts and the demographic over the years that there is this market share and market out there. It's just that you have to get the pricing right, you have to get the product right, the content right, and more importantly, the infrastructure. And I think that's, if you get that intersection right, I think you've got a big marketplace.
I think when Coldplay was first announced and the tickets got booked out, the biggest question was that, are the guys booking the tickets even people who listen to Coldplay? A lot of elitist jokes also came in, that who are these guys? You know, is it aspirational? Are they actually fans, or do they just want to be seen there? And it gave you a sense of the appetite, isn't it?
Look, there was a lot of things that was said during that booking phase about us and about this, and I think that's a little bit of maturity that is needed in the market. We are 1.4 billion Indians. It's a huge country. We had millions of people that were in the queue trying to buy. In Bombay, it was 50,000 into 3 shows. That's 150,000. In Ahmedabad, it was about 110,000 into 2 shows. That's, 210,000 tickets, 220,000 tickets. So we're talking about 340, 370,000 tickets. Now, there was a lot that was said. The queue is transparent. The token numbers were transparent. We have every customer's email ID, mobile number, device ID, transaction ID, and home address, because we deliver the tickets to your home.
No, I'm talking about the appetite of
the
that
supply
content.
demand. Yeah. So the supply demand. If you see the numbers on YouTube today, you see the numbers of streaming for a band like Coldplay. They are the world's biggest band. They're the highest ticketed band, and we have a large population, which is now discerning young demographic, which has disposable income. Where does the math go wrong? It's just that somebody didn't look at it.
Yeah. No, the appetite is there. The math is very much there. Viraf, of course, the Coldplay experience is most recent. Everyone's been talking about it, but this is something that's building, right? Apart from concerts, stand-up, live events are here to stay. And the juxtaposition I was talking about, you also have an industry like the movie industry, cinema halls, which are wondering how to get people in. So the appetite is there, it's just for something slightly different in terms of a live event.
I think the audiences are looking for something different. Movies and cricket are the two things that were selling like hotcakes always. But the Gen Z population, the crowd that is there, that particular segment of people are looking for experiences. And they get a different kind of feeling when they're actually attending something live. So I think it's shifting towards live because people want to experience something different. And that's what I think is driving people to the live entertainment business.
Yeah. Vivian, how do you look at what we are here seeing as a resurgence or a coming of age of the live event space in India? Is this something that you've been observing very closely?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an observation here. I had friends asking me to help get them tickets to the Coldplay shows because their families were in those queues and they couldn't access them. So absolutely, but it's also something you see globally. There's nothing that replaces the feeling of being at a live show. Whether you're in a tiny venue, I was at a huge venue for 2 weekends, last week and the week before, for Coachella. YouTube live streams Coachella. This was our 13th year of live streaming Coachella. Coachella actually grew to a 2-weekend festival after they began live streaming on YouTube. So indicative of the great stage that is in front of you is not everyone can get there, right? And so you've got to think about the digital space not as something that would replace people being there live physically. I think quite to the contrary. I completely agree with you. I think the post-pandemic, post-COVID, you see more and more of the I want to be in person, I want to be community building that way. But it is augmented by what can happen in a digital space or a broadcast space where you're delivering to people across the globe experiences that they couldn't have. I would take Coachella as an example. In 2024, 50% of their views on the festival came from ex-US. They were global. The way that those shows and festivals are booked now are intentionally done to reach fans all over the world. Hanuman Kind was at Coachella this year. Diljit Singh was there last year. So it's really a phenomenon that is complementary to being physically present. But I'm a live concert goer. There's nothing that will ever replace that.
Yeah. Do you think we're ready for our own Coachella here in India, or we're some time off?
Yes, I do. I already brought it up at Coachella. I can't say it's going to happen, but I did this year tell them that I was coming to the Waves Festival and that they should think about India, at least in the next 5 years.
Yeah. I think we can get a headline out of this, Ashish.
Why are you forgetting Lollapalooza?
Careful.
We've got Lollapalooza.
We do.
And
That's
we
true.
have
That's
we have
true.
60 bands that come from across the world, where we've had bands like Imagine Dragons, we had Green Day.
Yes.
I mean, we've had Sting play at Lollapalooza. We have, let me tell you another statistic. We had Hanuman Kind who played at Lollapalooza. He played at Coachella. We've had AP Dillon play at Lollapalooza, India. He played at Coachella. And this is our third successful year with 60,000 people every day. And we're growing the festival. I mean,
Plus, you have Travis Scott coming in October, who headlines Coachella this year.
yes. And so, thank you. So that's happening in Delhi. And then, so we've got Lollapalooza, we've got Bandland, which happens in Bangalore, which is a rock festival where we revived rock. You've got Asia's largest electronic dance music festival, which is Sunburn, which we do for the 17th year in a row. So I think we've got some homegrown as well as international festivals. The thing with Coachella is, whatever that I know, and they're friends of ours, that it doesn't travel, right? It's at Palm Springs. It happens in over 2 weekends, helped by what YouTube has done, and now, it's grown bigger and bigger. And Lollapalooza travels across the world. So I think each festival has its own unique USP, and look, we'd love to have more festivals come to India.
Yeah, so which is what, not exactly Coachella in India, but our own homegrown version. And it could be a mix of things, that kind of an experience, because culturally, Indians have always loved those kind of experiences. But on that scale, you think the time is right for something like that, Viraj?
I think, why not? I mean, we can create our own festival, which is IP owned by India and created, and then invite artists from across the world. It can be done, and I don't see why it cannot be done.
Well, let's talk about what we need to make it happen, because in terms of supply and demand, just in terms of the number of venues, the appetite that we're seeing there, and you spoke briefly, Ashish, about the kind of demand that you saw for Coldplay compared to the size of the population. How do we now scale up with the opportunity we have? Because there is a huge opportunity. You need venues, you need more artists, you need more people to have access to something that we now know there is a demand for. How do we make that happen? Let me start with you.
I think infrastructure is extremely important. Right now, wherever these big concerts are happening at sporting stadiums. And sometimes you don't get access to it because there's some other season going on, there's IPL going on, or some football matches going on. I think if we start creating arenas and stadiums in India, I think that's the first point. And then I think from the government perspective, like a single window licensing policy, if they give us that, I think it will really ease out the process.
Yeah. There's some good thoughts there. Ashish, what can we be doing to make this bigger and better?
Look, let me start from the artist side, right? Everything else follows. The artist is at the center of why we do what we do. And I think the challenge in India has been that at the ground up level, we haven't built a culture of venues for live. To give you an example, anywhere else in the world, you've got artists which can play to a 50-person room, they migrate to a 100-person, graduate to a 500-person room, go to a 1,500-person room, go to an arena, a small arena, then a big arena, then becomes a stadium or a festival act. The challenge with India is that we've got 6,000 years of history of culture and music, right? We've got the gharanas, we've got the music, we've got all of that. But it hasn't scaled at a global level. YouTube and all the OTT platforms are actually the ones that can provide this springboard to take it to the world where the sound becomes global. That's why you had the Afro sound. That's why you had the Latino sound. You've had K-pop. Otherwise, why would Korean music sitting out of one geography become so popular anywhere else in the world? Or J-pop, for that example. It's platforms like YouTube which actually do that and push it out there to the rest of the world. It becomes a sound that you start appreciating, collaborations happen. But on the live side, we haven't seen independent musicians being able to scale up, and therefore festivals like Lollapalooza, Bandland, Sunburn provide Indian artists that ability to scale up where you've got 60,000 people and you start exposing that sound on the big stage. To give you a sense, in the last fiscal, Book My Show did 40 to 50 of the large shows which came in, international shows, right? But we did 900 shows for Indian artists across college, 900, nobody knows that. But they were in smaller rooms, in college venues. But we need to provide them the ability to scale up from going from a 500-person room. They potentially can't go to a 60,000 or a stadium. What do we do in between? And I think that's where we suffer. Except for bars and small places, venues, there isn't that culture of this live music in terms of these venues where you can go out in an evening for live music, right? Now, coming to the infrastructure thing that we spoke about earlier, I think it's just not stadiums and single window clearances and state governments, but it's also at the local level. It's the municipal corporation where we get a lot of support in Bombay, law enforcement, licensing, and there's a whole bunch of things there. But also, you've got to see the infrastructure, what has gone up in terms of airports and airlines. You need mass transportation. You need transportation to the venue and outside, which is ingress and egress. You need metro lines that go under a venue. You need road networks which take, and when you do a tour within India, if you're doing a 10-city tour, how do you move 40 containers on trucks which get there in 8 hours? It's challenges like these. How do you get shore power? How do you get toilets? You don't need to use portaloos, but you need toilets which go into the sewage system. I think there's a lot more that is required in terms of infrastructure. We've got cricket stadiums, we've got sporting stadiums, we need multi-use. We've done that with the world's biggest cricket stadium, which is the Narendra Modi Cricket Stadium, where we had 110,000. We hit a world record of the largest ticketed concert anywhere in the world. But it was hard if we didn't have the support from the Gujarat government and the BCCI and the president of the Gujarat Cricket Association. Never in the history of India has a turf and the pitch been used to have a concert of this scale and size. But it was hard work. But I'm saying there is a potential. But before that, we need to solve other issues as well.
Yeah, no, well said. And, big hand for what we've done in Ahmedabad. I mean, that's just fantastic. In fact, the Prime Minister said very clearly about that, we should promote and boost live concerts in India. And, of course, that's something we need to do. You want to come in on this, Vivian, on what we can do to tap this hunger?
Yeah, sure. The festival business is not easy, even when you have the infrastructure. I think there's a couple of things that stand out. One is something that Ashish just said about scaling artists up. That's critical, right? You can't move an artist from a 500-person room or a 50-person room if they don't have the fans who are going to come in and buy the tickets. Then you have, so let's assume you can do that, but how many artists can you do that with? Can you do it with enough artists that appeal to enough different people that are part of the festival ticket buying public that they will come? The next part of it is the cost analysis. It's expensive. Like these festivals that even in a stadium, it's a little bit different, but you've got to build from the ground up. I'm going to take a festival in Paris called We Love Green. Small festival, small park, built up slowly over time. It's 100% green, sustainable. It takes investment, huge investment, and it takes the time to build up the scale of the artists, plus the cachet and the name of the festival itself. So the festivals become brands. Lollapalooza, Coachella, Outside Lands is in Chicago, Sunburn in Goa. They become brands in and to themselves so that people want to go and be there just to experience the community of sharing time together in that space. And so, you kind of have to think about it from the perspective of that artist that Ashish was referencing. To think about starting it from the perspective of a homegrown, we're going to try to attract 100,000 people for a weekend. I would suggest starting a little bit on the smaller side, scaling the artists up as you're doing it, building the economy around it, and then hitting that kind of a pinnacle of festival size.
We've talked about it from the perspective of the artist. Let's also talk about it from the perspective of those coming to experience this. And with everything in India, and I'm sure this is across festivals over the world, when there's a large group of people coming, then what the experience and the infrastructure is like. And here, Ashish, I want your perspective, and then of course I'll come around the panel on how we can improve this. In terms of crowds going in and out, in terms of, we're in a country that's hot most of the time, and these are all, open air. How many ever stalls you put out, there's going to be a line of 1,000 waiting. How have you been thinking about how these experiences can improve over time?
Look, you've hit the nail on the head. We have a 6-month to a 7-month season. We only operate for large events and festivals and concerts and stadium shows from October to about April, and we're pushing the envelope with Guns N' Roses in May, right? It's May 17th. Everybody's going to come in a Ganji and t-shirt and flip-flops, right? And we're putting spray cannons for water. We always give free water at all our festivals and all our concerts. Most people profit here. All water at Book My Show festivals, if you have your cuppable cup, which is a recyclable cup, your water is for free. We don't charge you for water. And we've always done that. And what we also realize is when kids come in early and they stand right in front, at the front of the house, whether it's a festival or a show, we now bring the water to you. In Ahmedabad and in Bombay, for every show, we provided 15,000 liters of water by people bringing the water to the kids in front because they didn't want to leave their place, right? I don't know what they were doing about the toilets, who did what with their toilet, what they were doing. I don't want to know if they were wearing diapers, but we got the water in front. Now, as far as infrastructure is concerned, see, look, we have a 7-month season or a 6-month season. So that's one challenge. We need more indoor venues. We need more arenas. And because of that, the international global touring market, it's quite restrictive because most of the global touring in Europe and the US happens in summer, and we can't do anything in summer because it's monsoons and it's very hot. Coming to the other thing, I can only tell you as a sailor, I race boats, I've been sailing for 35 years. I can't moan and complain about the wind. I can't complain about the tides. I can't complain about the heat. The only thing I can do is adjust my sails, right? That's what sailors do. So even at Book My Show, that's the philosophy that we have. The venues don't provide for mass transport system. When we did Coldplay in DY Patil, we went to the Indian Railways, supported by Mr. Ashwini Vaishnav, who's been phenomenal, and the Secretariat. They had the Kumbh Mela, but they still gave us trains which ran from Bombay city with a new routing, stopping at a certain place, and we had 2 trains on the weekend and 3 trains on the weekday, which was specific only for the Coldplay concert. And we transported nearly 40% of the people, traveled by trains, which was a special train. The other thing, we work with the municipal commissioner for the center ground. In the center ground at the Turf Club, because we don't have a metro line that goes under, the Bombay police and the traffic department opens up the tunnel and keeps it open beyond the normal working hours. Number 2, they give us extra parking spots. Number 3, we run a train which comes to Mahalakshmi and we incentivize kids that come for Lollapalooza that if you take the train, you get 1 free drink or 1 free cold drink if you're below legal drinking age. And you pick up your coupon at the Mahalakshmi railway station. And then we have volunteers where we block that road and people come in. So more than 60% of people actually take public transport to come to the concert because there is no parking for Lollapalooza. For Ahmedabad, because Kumbh was on and there aren't enough flights that go into Ahmedabad, we redirected extra flights to cities like Bombay and other cities, and then we had extra long distance trains that were running to Ahmedabad because there weren't enough hotel rooms. So look, we're doing what we can. What the growth of India and the infrastructure development that you have seen, and I keep telling people, if you haven't been to India in the last 2 years, you're coming to a different country or a different city. And the pace of change and the rate of growth is faster than growth itself in India today. The economy is growing at 8.5%. Under the Prime Minister, look at the development that has happened. Look at Bombay as a city. The Chief Minister's development agenda for the coastal route today and the extension can only ease traffic. Be patient, give it another 5 years. We've got to do the catching up. I think the government is running faster than us today. It used to be the other way around.
No, absolutely. The government is clear with that push. We need to dream bigger and scale bigger. Just talking about DY Patil and the kids there, because I was at that concert and the kids, this is how they get to the front. I'm looking for my parents, they're waiting for me. And then I caught up and I said, where are your parents? And they were just making it up. So it was a lot of stories from the concert. But just in terms of what we can do to improve the experience. And in price points as well, Viraf, that's a point that Vivian made, that make it accessible to everyone. Obviously, if it's a huge international act, it's going to cost more. But make sure live events and those experiences are accessible to more people. How do we do that?
I think the overall pricing of everything has to be down. And you have to make it affordable so that the more and more people are able to, they can afford to buy the tickets, and then you'll see the crowd coming in. So right from the price that you pay to the artist, to the production costs, etc., everything has to be kept under control so that you are able to pass on that benefit to the audience, and then you'll get the larger return, which is the numbers will come more. You know, so I think that's what one needs to do to make it affordable and reasonable.
Yeah. There's no problem of numbers here, no matter what the tickets are priced at, as we've seen.
Yeah, the people are willing to pay. The certain segment of people are willing to pay top dollar, and then certain people who are willing to pay, want to be there, but can't afford that much. So I think you have to cater to everybody. So.
Well, I'm being asked to wrap it up. We are out of time, but thank you so much to all of you.
I wanted to make one final point. To what Vivian said, shows which are getting more immersive are only getting bigger. The one constant that you can't change, artists are not going to get cheaper. So that's bullshit. If we believe that artists are going to get cheaper, they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
No, and why should they?
It's expensive, right? And we owe it to them. Global touring is becoming more and more complex. It's becoming harder. What we need to do is to make sure that you get the math right in terms of at Coldplay or at Lollapalooza or at Travis Scott, our floor pricing is 6,500 rupees, which is sub $80. And we pay an 18% GST on top, which is one of the highest in the world. It used to be 28, but the government of the day has actually brought it down. But it's still very high. Infrastructure costs are higher for us. In spite of that, if you look at a long-term build for the market and investing in the market and creating an industry, this is your contribution to that. If you start charging $200 for floor pricing, I think you're just jipping consumers. So at 6,500, 7,000 rupees, I think we're at the lowest end of the market, even though our expenses are higher. And it ain't getting cheaper with global artists because the concerts are bigger, the productions are bigger. So I think we've got to work harder on the production, on the infrastructure to actually find dollars in terms of the revenues that you need to make.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, live streaming is one great example on how you can augment those revenues.
Yes.
I completely agree. And there are new technologies on YouTube that we're using to engage more audiences around the world. So there's a feature called Watch With. So a creator in India could actually pipe onto their own channel a live stream that's happening from somewhere else, and vice versa. So you can take, when you think about ways to engage globally, whether it's bringing people in or exporting content, that kind of collaborative approach, even in a live moment, you can access audiences that are bigger, and that just ups the ante. It ups the ante more for the artists to want to come here and do these shows. And to Ashish's point, they're going to come in with their production. They're not going to come to perform without their rig and their videos, and you know they're not going to drop their show quality in their perception down to play here. They want it to be spectacular, so it's expensive. So you have to think about ways that you can enhance the on-the-ground experience with some other world, bigger audiences approach too.
Yeah, that's one great way, and I don't think Indian audiences want a subpar or a lower quality experience either. It has to be the same, whether you're seeing it in Abu Dhabi or in Ahmedabad. But thank you so much to all of you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
And I hope you guys enjoyed this session.
Thank you so much to all the speakers and the moderator for making this session a very insightful one. I now request Mr. Raviraj Sartapi to please join us on the stage. He's the Director from Ministry of Information and Broadcasting for the felicitation of all the speakers and the moderator. A huge round of applause for all the speakers for such an insightful and interesting session as they talked about evolving future of live events, tech innovation, and a lot more, and we got to hear right from the horse's mouth. I request everybody to please come together for a quick photo opportunity. All right, moving on towards our next session of day 2 of Waves, that happens to be the last session of the day. It talks about future of entertainment, OTTs fueling innovative storytelling, tech innovations, viewer experiences, and stretching the boundaries along with OTTs, which is over the top, versus the big screen. And to talk about this, I would now like to invite on stage Mr. Nikhil Mathur, who's the head of Originals India Prime Video. A huge round of applause from Mr. Mathur. I would also take the opportunity to invite Mr. Gaurav Gandhi, the Vice President of Amazon Prime Video. A huge round of applause for Mr. Gandhi. Can we please have him on the stage? I now also invite Mr. Nikhil Advani, the creator and director. A huge round of applause for Mr. Advani as well. And to take this session forward, we also have with us on the stage Mr. Vikramaditya Motwani, who's the creator and director as well. A huge round of applause and a very warm welcome to Mr. Motwani. To take this forward, we have with us Mr. Sudeep Sharma, along with Ms. Shiv Desani, who happens to be the co-creator of Dupaiya. A huge round of applause for all the elite speakers who are present on the stage to take this session forward. And the moderator for this session is again Mr. Sanjay Pugalia, who is the director of NDTV Limited.